Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. In this explainer, we're going to dive into what honestly feels like a magic trick in the scientific world, how researchers manage to take the completely invisible aspects of our universe and make them visible. We're talking about taking the most profound, mind-bending mysteries of reality and breaking them down into a format that our human brains can actually process.
I want you to imagine an impossible task for a second. Picture trying to hold an entire galaxy right in the palm of your hand, just to study how it rotates. Or, on the flip side, imagine trying to dissect a single microscopic atom with your bare hands to figure out what it's made of. It's literally impossible, right? The natural world throws these massive hurdles of scale at us all the time. Some things are just way too huge, too unimaginably tiny, or honestly, far too complex to observe directly. So how do we actually study them?
Okay, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover seeing the unseen, what are scientific models, the three main model types, strengths and limitations, and finally, conducting a fair test.
All right, jumping right in with Section 1, Seeing the Unseen and the Problem of Scale.
The sheer, mind-boggling scale of reality is our very first challenge. We are completely bound by our human senses, and the universe, well, it definitely doesn't cater to those physical limits. Just think about the extreme contrast in how we have to look at the world. On one hand, you have scientists peering through massive telescopes to observe planets and stars millions of miles away. On the other hand, you have the classic microscope, which is absolutely essential for revealing microscopic cells that are right in front of us. We have to rely on these highly specialized tools to bridge the gap between our everyday perception and extreme reality. But here's the thing. Sometimes even these tools aren't enough.
Which brings us to Section 2. What are scientific models, and how do they simplify reality? So how exactly do we solve this profound problem of scale when microscopes and telescopes fail us? We use scientific models. Simply put, a scientific model is a simplified representation of a system, object, idea, event, or process. It's designed specifically to help scientists explain, test, and predict how things work. You can think of models as a specialized pair of glasses that scientists wear to comprehend complex reality. Even your standard map of the world is a model. It drastically distorts physical reality, but it does that specifically to help us navigate. Models strip away all the unnecessary noise so we can focus strictly on the mechanics of what we're studying.
Instead of trying to study an overwhelming, chaotic system directly, scientists rely on models for four core reasons. First, to explain complex ideas simply. Second, to visualize unseen things. Actually, fun fact about that, before the 1950s, nobody really knew what a DNA molecule structurally looked like until Watson and Crick built a physical model out of cardboard and wire. Pretty amazing, right? Third, we use them to test ideas and predictions safely and efficiently. And fourth, to understand how massive, interconnected systems like global weather patterns or quantum mechanics actually function.
All right, moving on to Section 3, the three main model types in a scientist's toolkit.
Think of models like a specialized tool belt divided into three main buckets: conceptual, mathematical, and physical models. Because, let's be real, you wouldn't use a hammer to turn a screw, right? A good scientific model always has to match the precise purpose of the investigation. Let's look at how we observe, explain, and predict using these three distinct categories.
Let's break those down real quick. First up, the mathematical model. This uses numbers, equations, graphs, and data to describe patterns and make predictions. If you want to calculate the speed of a car or predict global population growth, you rely on math. Contrasting that, we have the physical model. These are touchable, 3D representations of an object or system. Think of a globe of the Earth, a skeleton in a biology class, or a clay volcano. A physical model's absolute greatest strength is showing true shape, relative size, and physical structure.
And then there's our third tool, the conceptual model. These models show ideas, relationships, or processes using words, arrows, and simple diagrams. A great example is a diagram of the water cycle. It helps us easily visualize how different invisible processes connect. You can clearly trace the path from evaporation up to condensation to precipitation and all the way back down to collection. It's the absolute best tool for explaining how different parts of a system communicate with one another. Okay, let's put this into practice and do a really quick mini quiz. Imagine you're in a classroom and you're looking at a 3D model of a volcano made entirely out of painted clay. Which of our three types of models do you think that is? I'll give you a second. If you guessed physical model, you absolutely nailed it. Because it's a touchable, physical, 3D representation of a real object, it falls perfectly into that category. Let's try one more. What about a flowchart?
tracking the exact steps in plant photosynthesis, using boxes and arrows to show the flow of sunlight and carbon dioxide. Which tool is this one?
Exactly right. It's a conceptual model. It uses a diagram to show us the relationships and steps in a biological process, which helps us visually connect ideas that we just can't easily see happening in real time.
Now let's look at Section 4, Strengths and Limitations and Knowing Our Model Boundaries.
Models are incredibly useful, for sure. They help us communicate, plan, and predict. But here's the catch, and it's a vital one. They are not exact copies of reality. No model can perfectly explain every single tiny detail of the real world. Sometimes they're deliberately oversimplified to make a point. And importantly, a model might need to be completely thrown out when brand new evidence appears. A mathematical prediction, for instance, is truly only as good as the data you feed into it. It's a classic case of garbage in, garbage out.
All right, our last stop. Section 5, conducting a fair test.
Let's say we want to figure out which fertilizer actually helps plants grow taller. In a true scientifically fair test, absolutely everything stays exactly the same. The plant type, the pot size, the soil, the water, the sunlight, all identical. The only single variable that changes is the fertilizer itself. Then we measure the height. Contrast that with a scenario where you use different pots, different amounts of water, and leave some plants in the shade. Well, that is definitely not science. If one plant grows taller in that messy setup, you have no idea if it was the fertilizer, the extra water, or the bigger pot that did the trick.
So, to make sure you're actually doing rigorous science, you want to run your experiments through a quick 4-step check. Ask yourself, 1. Do I have a testable question? 2. Is only one variable being changed? 3. Am I taking real measurements and recording data? And 4. Could someone else repeat this exact task fairly? If the answer to all 4 of those is yes, congratulations, you are doing real science.
And you can literally apply this same 4-step checklist to everyday scenarios. Take the classic lucky bracelet claim. Say a student swears his lucky bracelet helps him get higher test scores, but he doesn't test it fairly, right? He doesn't collect baseline data without the bracelet, and he ends up changing his study habits anyway. That is definitively not science. But contrast that with a paper towel test, where 2 students use the exact same amount of water to see which brand absorbs more. That is a fair, repeatable, scientific test.
Which basically brings us to the end of our journey today. We've seen exactly how scientists make the invisible visible using conceptual, mathematical, and physical models, and how crucial it is to test those models fairly. So, here's my challenge for you. Think about your absolute favorite topic in science. Is it black holes, deep sea ecosystems, maybe artificial intelligence? Whatever it is, what kind of scientific model would you create to explain it? Grab your mental toolkit and start building. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and keep questioning the universe.